Good morning. This is an opportunity to provide something different and special for the children in our congregation. Today I want to read a book called Katie Morag and the Tiresome Ted. The story is in the Isle of Struhe. There was great excitement on the Isle of Struhe. Mrs. McColl at the post office had had a new baby, and everyone was delighted. Everyone, that is, except Katie Morag. She had been in a bad mood ever since the new baby had arrived. "No one talks to me anymore," she grumbled to herself, "or brings me presents." "Don't worry," everyone said knowingly. "Katie Morag will soon get over it." But Katie Morag could not and would not get over it. She kept doing naughty things like stamping her feet and nipping her little brother Liam. One day she was so cross that she stomped all the way down to the jetty and kicked her friendly old one-eyed teddy bear into the sea. "Tiresome Ted," she shouted as he disappeared in the choppy waves. Mrs. McColl was at her wit's end. How can I cope with running the post office and with looking after the new baby and Liam when Katie Morag is behaving like this, she asked, throwing her arms up in despair. Mr. McColl said that he was trying to help. Granny Island picked up a basket full of the baby's dirty washing and left, saying they could send Katie Morag over to stay with her if she became too much of a handful. That night, the first of the winter storms battered at the window. Katie Morag could not sleep. She wondered what had become of her old Teddy, and she began to wish she hadn't thrown him away. She crept over to Liam's bed and took his hot water bottle, but it didn't make her feel much better. The next morning, things seemed even worse. Katie Morag woke up to a wet bed. Liam thought it was very funny, but Mrs. McColl was furious. It was the last straw. "I think perhaps Katie Morag should go to Granny Islands for a few days after all," sighed Mr. McColl. Katie Morag trudged slowly over to Granny Islands on the other side of the bay. Having bad moods is very tiring, she thought to herself, and so engrossed was she with her own crossness that she didn't notice a familiar object being flung up by the waves of the incoming tide. The bad weather lasted for 2 whole days and nights. Granny Island could not get on with the washing, and Katie Morag was forced to stay indoors. She wondered how everyone was back at home, and all the while her old teddy bear lay abandoned on the beach in front of Granny Island's house. He was a sorry sight. At last the rain stopped and the sun came out. Katie Morag felt much better, and she decided to stop being in a bad mood. She went down to the high tide line to collect driftwood for Granny's stove. Katie Morag found all sorts of other interesting things that had been washed up by the storm. A ball for Liam, a box for Mr. McColl, a bottle for Mrs. McColl, and a beautiful big conch shell. "I'll give this to the new baby," thought Katie Morag, "and show her how to hear the sea." It was only then that Katie Morag noticed the 2 furry arms sticking up through the seaweed. She couldn't believe her eyes. Old Ted wasn't lost after all. Katie Morag rushed back to Granny's and dried her teddy out by the stove. She filled his tummy with some fluffy sheep's wool and then laboriously began sewing up the large tear in his tummy. But even with his new eye, he still looked the worse for wear. When Granny Island wasn't looking, Katie Morag took something out of the washing basket. The journey back to the post office seemed to take ages. Katie Morag couldn't wait to get home to show everyone the things she had found by the shore. The other islanders were pleased to see Katie Morag looking like her old self again. "She's got over it," they all said, nodding their heads. "Thank you for the lovely presents, Katie Morag," said Mrs. McColl, "and thank you, Granny Island, for doing all the washing. It's good to have our Katie Morag back, to see old Ted again," and Mr. McColl smiling. I'll never ever throw him away again, or call him Tiresome Ted, said Katie Morag, and she meant it. And nobody said a thing about the missing baby girl from Mrs. McColl's washing basket, which was perhaps just as well.